Marcus stood behind his mahogany desk, his arm casually draped around Vanessa's waist, and smiled like he'd already won. Effective immediately, you're terminated. Pack your things and leave your access badge with security. This $15 million company belongs to me now, and Vanessa will be stepping into your role as CTO. He slid divorce papers across the polished surface. These will be finalized by Friday. Security will escort you out in exactly 8 minutes. Before we jump back in, tell us where you're tuning in from, and if this story touches you, make sure you're a subscriber, because tomorrow, I've saved something extra special for you. I looked at the man I'd spent a decade building an empire with, the man who'd whispered promises in the dark, and felt my phone vibrate in my pocket. The automated sequence I'd programmed 6 months ago had just activated. 8 minutes. That's all the time they had left before their perfect world shattered into irreparable pieces. But they didn't know that yet. Let me tell you how a software architect destroys the man who tried to erase her. The corner office on the 42nd floor of the Millennium Tower had floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking downtown San Francisco. Marcus had insisted on this office when we'd signed the lease 3 years ago. We need to look like we've already made it, he'd said. I'd argued we should invest in better server infrastructure instead. He'd overruled me. Now he stood in front of those windows, backlit by the morning sun streaming through the bay fog, looking every inch the successful tech CEO in his custom Tom Ford suit. Vanessa Chen, no, I need to use a different name. Vanessa Sterling stood beside him in a crimson dress that probably cost more than our first office's monthly rent. She was 26, fresh from Stanford's MBA program, with perfectly highlighted blonde hair and the kind of confident smile that comes from never having to fight for anything. I don't understand, I said, though I understood perfectly. I'd understood for exactly 183 days. The board meeting isn't until next week. My quarterly review was exemplary. Marcus exchanged a glance with Vanessa. A small, intimate look that spoke of shared secrets and private jokes. The kind of look he used to give me. The board met yesterday, he said, his voice taking on that patronizing tone I'd grown to hate. Emergency session. We discussed some concerning patterns in your behavior, erratic decision-making, conflicts with team members, inability to collaborate effectively with leadership. Leadership meaning you. Leadership meaning the executive team. He gestured vaguely. Vanessa has documented numerous instances of your hostile workplace conduct over the past 6 months. I turned to look at her directly for the first time. She met my gaze without flinching, her blue eyes cold and calculating. This woman who I'd mentored, who I'd brought into the company when Marcus suggested we needed fresh perspective on our operations. Hostile workplace conduct, I repeated slowly. Such as? Vanessa picked up a leather portfolio from Marcus's desk, flipping it open with practiced efficiency. Refusal to attend mandatory team-building exercises. Dismissive attitude toward collaborative feedback. Working from home excessively without proper communication. Undermining executive decisions in front of junior staff members. She looked up. Should I continue? Every item on that list was a lie, or a grotesque distortion of reality. The team-building exercises had been expensive retreats that took engineers away from critical deadlines. The collaborative feedback had been Marcus trying to change my technical architecture without understanding it. The working from home had been me coding at 3 a.m. because that's when I did my best work. The undermining had been me correcting Marcus when he told clients our system could do things it absolutely could not. This is absurd, I said. I built the core platform. Every major innovation in our product came from my work. The predictive algorithm, the real-time threat assessment, the adaptive firewall protocols. Which are now company property, Marcus interrupted smoothly. Property that needs proper leadership to maximize its potential. The board agrees that Vanessa's strategic vision and collaborative approach make her better suited for the CTO role. She doesn't even have a technical background. She has an MBA from Stanford and 5 years of strategic consulting experience at McKinsey. Marcus's voice hardened. Frankly, Natasha, this attitude is exactly what we're talking about. You've never respected anyone who doesn't code. But technology companies need more than just programmers. They need vision. Natasha Reeves. That was my name. Natasha Marie Reeves, daughter of 2 public school teachers from Sacramento, first-generation college graduate, MIT dropout who'd learned more from building actual systems than any lecture hall could teach me. I'd spent 15 years in cybersecurity before Marcus, and I had started Titan Shield Solutions in our shared apartment in the Mission District. That was back when we ate ramen 3 meals a day and believed in each other. The severance package is generous, Vanessa said, her tone suggesting she was doing me a favor. 4 weeks' pay, continuation of health benefits for 60 days, and you can keep your company laptop as a gesture of goodwill. My company laptop. The $1,200 MacBook Pro that contained every original algorithm, every prototype, every piece of code I'd written before we'd even incorporated. They thought they were being magnanimous. They had no idea they were handing me a loaded weapon. There's one more thing, Marcus said, and something in his voice made me look at him sharply. He reached into his desk drawer and pulled out a manila envelope. I'm filing for divorce. The papers will be served to the house, my house, technically, since it's in my name, tomorrow morning. I'll be staying at the Ritz until we work out the property division, but I think it's best if you start looking for your own place. The marriage hasn't worked for a long time, Natasha. We both know that. The marriage hasn't worked. As if it were a mutual realization rather than a calculated execution. My phone vibrated again in my jacket pocket. A second notification. The first stage of my carefully constructed plan had just completed its initialization sequence. I looked at Marcus, really looked at him, trying to find any trace of the man I'd fallen in love with in a Stanford coffee shop 12 years ago. The brilliant business student who'd been fascinated by my security research. The man who'd proposed to me in that same coffee shop 3 years later, the ring hidden in my usual vanilla latte. That man was gone. Or maybe he'd never existed at all. Security is waiting outside, Marcus said, glancing at his Patek Philippe watch. You have 5 minutes to collect your personal items from your office. 8 minutes, I corrected. You said 8 minutes when I walked in. He frowned slightly. Does it matter? Precision matters in everything, Marcus. You taught me that. I stood slowly, picking up the termination letter I hadn't bothered to read. Or actually, no. I taught you that. You just took credit for it, like everything else. I walked to the door, my hand on the brushed steel handle, and turned back one last time. You're right about one thing, I said quietly. This marriage hasn't worked. But not for the reasons you think. Marcus raised an eyebrow. Vanessa smirked. I smiled. A real smile. The first genuine expression I'd allowed myself in months. You'll understand in about 6 minutes. 10 years ago, I was nobody special. Just another 28-year-old woman sitting in a Stanford coffee shop, laptop covered in coding stickers, debugging a security protocol that should have been impossible to crack. Except I'd cracked it in 47 minutes. Is that the Henderson firewall? I looked up, annoyed at the interruption. A guy stood there with sandy brown hair, bright green eyes, and a smile that was way too confident for someone wearing a wrinkled button-down shirt. He held 2 coffee cups. Maybe. Who's asking? Marcus Holloway. I'm in the MBA program. He set 1 cup down in front of me without asking. Vanilla latte, extra shot. I've seen you order it like 15 times. And that, he pointed at my screen, is definitely the Henderson firewall. Which means you're either Natasha Reeves or someone's stolen her laptop. I stared at him. You know my work? Are you kidding? Your paper on adaptive threat detection was genius. Completely changed how I think about cybersecurity investment strategy. He slid into the seat across from me like we were old friends. I've been trying to work up the courage to talk to you for 3 weeks. By stalking my coffee order? By appreciating your consistency. His grin widened. So? Are you Natasha Reeves? Depends. Are you going to keep interrupting my work? Preparing and narrating this story took us a lot of time, so if you are enjoying it, subscribe to our channel, it means a lot to us. Now back to the story. Probably. But I'll make it worth your while. That's how it started. Marcus showing up at the coffee shop every Tuesday and Thursday when he knew I'd be there. Bringing me coffee. Asking questions about my research that were actually intelligent. Listening, really listening, when I explained complex concepts that usually made people's eyes glaze over. 6 months later, we were inseparable. Marcus would sit beside me while I coded, his laptop open with spreadsheets and business plans, occasionally reading passages from case studies about tech startups. We'd make an incredible team, he said one night in my tiny apartment in Palo Alto. We were sitting on my thrift store couch, sharing Chinese takeout straight from the containers. You've got the technical brilliance. I've got the business sense. Could build something huge. Build what, specifically? A cybersecurity company that actually works. He set down his Kung Pao chicken and turned to face me fully. Look, every security firm out there is reactive. They wait for attacks to happen, then scramble to fix them. But your adaptive detection system? That's predictive. That's revolutionary. We could save companies billions. I laughed. We? Marcus, I'm working on this in my spare time between contract jobs. You're still in school. I graduate in 4 months. And you, he poked my shoulder playfully, are wasting your time fixing other people's broken systems when you could be creating your own. Come on, Tasha. Don't you want to create something that's actually yours? Tasha. He was the only person who ever called me that. I'd always hated nicknames, but somehow when he said it, I didn't mind. 3 months later, Marcus graduated. 2 months after that, his parents wrote us a check for $75,000. And 6 weeks later, we signed the lease on a tiny office space in San Francisco's Soma district, 800 square feet with peeling paint, terrible lighting, and a bathroom that barely functioned. It was perfect. We worked 16-hour days. I'd code while Marcus handled everything else, incorporation paperwork, investor meetings, client outreach, marketing plans. He'd bring me coffee at 2 a.m. when I was deep in a debugging session. I'd proofread his pitch decks when he was preparing for investor presentations. We need a name, he said one night after 2 months of operating as Holloway Technologies LLC. Something that sounds secure, I suggested. Trustworthy. But also powerful. We're not just protecting data, we're building digital fortresses. We threw names back and forth for hours. Shield Tech. Secure Core. Data Fortress. Everything sounded either too generic or too aggressive. What about Titan Shield? Marcus said suddenly. Like, the Titans from mythology. Powerful, foundational, protecting humanity. I rolled it around in my mind. Titan Shield Solutions. It had weight to it. Strength. I love it. Yeah? His face lit up. Yeah. Let's do it. He kissed me right there in our cramped little office, surrounded by empty coffee cups and scattered papers and the hum of servers in the corner. When he pulled back, his eyes were serious. We're going to change the world, Tasha. You and me. Partners in everything. Partners in everything, I agreed. 3 months later, he proposed in that same Stanford coffee shop where we'd met. The ring was modest, he'd spent way more than we could afford, but it wasn't some massive diamond. Just a simple sapphire surrounded by tiny diamonds, set in white gold. Marry me, he'd said, down on one knee in front of a dozen amused graduate students. Be my partner in business and in life. Your dreams are my dreams. I said yes. Of course I said yes. Our wedding was small, just immediate family and a few close friends. We couldn't afford anything fancy, so we got married at San Francisco City Hall on a Wednesday afternoon. I wore a cream-colored dress I'd found at a vintage shop for $120. Marcus wore the same suit he wore to investor meetings. We honeymooned in Big Sur for 3 days, camping in a borrowed tent because we'd just signed our first major client, a financial services firm that paid us $200,000 for a comprehensive security overhaul. To us, Marcus had said, raising a can of cheap beer in our tent while rain pounded the fabric above us. To building something that matters. Always, I'd promised. That was 10 years ago, when promises meant something, and I believed that love and partnership were the same thing. The first 3 years after we got married were honestly magic. I know that sounds cheesy, but it's true. Marcus and I were perfectly in sync, like two halves of the same brain working toward the same goal. Titan Shield grew faster than either of us expected. That first financial services client led to 3 more. Then a hospital system. Then a major retail chain. Within 18 months, we'd moved from our cramped little office to an actual floor in a real building with a reception area and conference rooms and everything. I hired my first team member, a brilliant developer named Kevin Park who just left Google because he was bored with corporate politics. Then came Lisa Rodriguez, our network specialist. Then James Wu for penetration testing. By year 2, we had 12 employees. By year 3, we had 30. Marcus handled everything on the business side. He was incredible at it, honestly. The man could charm anyone. He'd walk into meetings with these massive corporations and somehow convince them that our small startup could protect their data better than the industry giants. And he was right, we could. Because my systems actually worked. Every Sunday night, Marcus and I would sit in our living room. We'd finally bought a small house in Oakland, and go over the week ahead. He'd tell me about upcoming client meetings and investor calls. I'd tell him about development milestones and technical challenges. The Thompson Industries contract came through, he'd said one Sunday evening, pouring us both wine. $2.3 million over 3 years. It's our biggest deal yet. That's amazing. I jumped up and hugged him. When did you close it? Yesterday. I wanted to surprise you. He'd kissed my forehead. Thompson's CTO said the detection system was the most innovative security architecture he'd ever seen. We're really doing this, I'd said, still amazed sometimes. Yeah, we are. We celebrated our 3rd anniversary at a nice restaurant in San Francisco, not crazy expensive, but nicer than our usual takeout. Marcus had a gift for me, a custom-made necklace with 2 interlocking titanium rings. Titan, he'd explained, like Titan Shield. 2 rings for partnership. Always connected. I'd worn it every single day for the next 7 years. The company kept growing. By year 4, we hit $8 million in revenue. By year 5, $12 million. The local tech press started covering us. Business journals wrote articles about the married co-founders disrupting cybersecurity. We did joint interviews where Marcus and I would finish each other's sentences and laugh about working while being married. Doesn't it get exhausting? One journalist had asked. Working with your spouse constantly? Exhausting? Marcus had looked at me and smiled. It's the best part. I get to spend all day with my favorite person. How many people can say that? I'd squeezed his hand under the table. Because yeah, it really was the best part then. We went public with our series of funding in year 6. Marcus orchestrated the whole thing, pitching to venture capital firms, negotiating terms, handling all the legal paperwork. We raised $23 million. The day the money hit our account, Marcus and I sat in our office after everyone had gone home, just staring at the bank statement on his screen. $23 million, I'd whispered. Remember when we thought $75,000 was a fortune? Remember when we were working out of that disaster of an office in Soma? Marcus had laughed. You nearly electrocuted yourself trying to install those servers yourself because we couldn't afford an electrician. You talked our landlord into giving us 2 months free rent by explaining market conditions and startup runway. Which was complete bullshit, but he bought it. Marcus had turned to look at me. We did it, Tasha. 2 kids with a dream and $75,000. Now we're running a $15 million company with 70 employees. He'd kissed me then. Not a quick peck, but one of those long, Slow kisses that reminded me why I'd fallen in love with him in the first place. That was the peak. That moment right there, sitting in our office with $23 million in funding and the whole world ahead of us. If I could go back to any moment in my life, it would be that one. Before everything changed. Before I understood what ambition without integrity looks like. The board of directors was Marcus's idea. We need oversight, he'd explained. Investors want experienced guidance helping us make decisions. It's standard for companies our size. I'd agreed because it made sense. We brought on 5 board members, 3 from our venture capital firms, plus 2 independent advisors with tech industry experience. Marcus and I each got a seat, obviously, since we were co-founders. Except the paperwork didn't quite say co-founders. It said Marcus was CEO and I was CTO. Chief Technical Officer. Which was accurate, I guess, but something about seeing it written down like that bothered me. It's just titles, Marcus had said when I'd mentioned it. For organizational clarity. You're still a full partner with ownership and decision-making power. The titles are just for investors and clients. They like clear hierarchy. But we don't have hierarchy. We're partners. And we always will be. The paperwork is just paperwork, babe. It doesn't change what we've built. I dropped it. Because I trusted him. Because we were a team. Because the titles didn't matter as long as we both knew the truth. That was my first mistake. The second mistake was not paying closer attention to the org chart he'd created for our Series B funding pitch. It showed Marcus at the top as CEO, with 2 branches underneath, one for business operations, and one for technical operations. My name was at the head of the technical branch, but definitely under Marcus's position, not beside it. This is how investors expect to see company structure, he'd explained when I'd questioned it. A clear chain of command. It doesn't mean you report to me. It's just visual formatting for the pitch deck. Visual formatting. That's what he'd called it. Looking back now, I can see what he was doing. Slowly, carefully, almost imperceptibly rewriting our story. Changing the narrative from, we built this, to, he built this company with technical support from his wife. But I didn't see it then. I was too busy writing code, too focused on making our product better, too confident that our partnership was solid. By year 7, Titan Shield was worth $45 million on paper. We'd moved into the Millennium Tower with those gorgeous views of the bay. Marcus had hired an interior designer for the executive floor. We had a full kitchen, a game room, a meditation space. The office looked like something out of a tech magazine. And somewhere during all that growth and success and money, the man I'd married had disappeared. Replaced by someone who cared more about appearance than substance. Someone who'd forgotten that none of this existed without my code, my architecture, my innovation. Someone who was about to learn what happens when you try to erase the person who built your empire. The changes started so small I almost didn't notice them. Or maybe I noticed but told myself I was being paranoid. Either way, by the time I realized what was happening, Marcus had already rewritten half our history. It started with the Monday morning meetings. We'd always run them as a team. Marcus would cover business updates, I'd cover technical progress. But around year 7, something shifted. So as I was explaining to the development team last week, Marcus said during one meeting, the new authentication protocol needs to prioritize user experience over security depth. I looked up from my notes. I never said that. I said we need to balance both, but security can't be compromised for convenience. Right. That's what I meant. He didn't even pause, just kept going like I hadn't corrected him. Natasha sometimes gets lost in the technical weeds, so let me put it in simpler terms for everyone. Let me put it in simpler terms. Like I hadn't just explained it perfectly clearly. Like my team, the people I'd hired and trained, needed Marcus to translate my own work back to me. That happened 3 more times that month. Every time I'd explain something technical, Marcus would jump in with, what Natasha means is. And then proceed to dumb down my explanation until it was basically wrong. Why do you keep doing that in meetings? I asked him one night at home. Doing what? Interrupting me. Oversimplifying everything I say. Marcus sighed, that patient sigh that made me feel like I was being unreasonable. Tasha, you're brilliant, okay? Nobody's questioning that. But you dive way too deep into technical details. Most people can't follow. I'm just making sure everyone stays on the same page. My developers follow me just fine. Because they're developers. But we have operations people in those meetings now. Marketing people. They need context. He kissed my cheek. I'm not trying to undermine you. I'm trying to help you communicate better. That's gaslighting, by the way. Making you doubt your own perception while pretending to help. The client presentations got worse. I'd spend days preparing demos of our new features, practice my presentation, time it perfectly. Then we'd get in the meeting and Marcus would take over halfway through. Thanks for that technical overview, Natasha, he'd say. Let me put this in business terms our clients can understand. Afterward, he'd shake hands with the clients while I stood there like an accessory. Natasha's our technical genius, he'd tell them with this patronizing smile. She builds the magic behind the scenes. Behind the scenes. That's where he wanted me. Then Vanessa happened. She showed up for her interview on a Tuesday morning wearing a perfectly tailored navy suit. Marcus had scheduled the interview without telling me. Natasha, this is Vanessa Sterling, Marcus said. She's interviewing for our new Director of Strategic Operations position. What Director of Strategic Operations position? The one I mentioned last week. To help streamline our processes and prepare for the next funding round. He had definitely not mentioned this. She was impressive. Stanford MBA, 5 years at McKinsey, strong recommendations. She spoke confidently about operational efficiency and strategic planning and market positioning. What about the technical side? I asked. Do you have experience with cybersecurity or software development? I'm not a technical person, Vanessa said with a practiced smile. My expertise is in optimizing operations so that technical teams can focus purely on innovation without getting bogged down in logistics. After she left, Marcus was practically glowing. She's perfect. Exactly what we need. We hired Vanessa 2 days later. She started the following Monday. That was 8 months ago. 8 months of watching her slowly insert herself into every aspect of the company. 8 months of her joining meetings I used to run alone. 8 months of her offering suggestions that somehow always made me look difficult or unreasonable. 8 months of late-night strategy sessions between her and Marcus that I wasn't invited to. I started noticing other things too. Marcus would schedule important client calls during times he knew I had deep work sessions blocked off. Oh, I thought you could just join for a few minutes, he'd say. It's fine, I handled it. Or he'd change technical decisions without consulting me. I'd come in Monday morning and find out he'd promised a client some feature that didn't exist and couldn't exist with our current architecture. Why didn't you ask me before committing to that? I'd demand. Because I knew you'd say it was too complicated. Sometimes we need to push boundaries, Tasha. Say yes first, figure out how later. That's how you make promises you can't keep. Then don't fail to deliver. You're the genius, right? Make it work. The worst part was how he'd started talking about me to other people. I'd overhear conversations. Yeah, Natasha's having one of her moods again. Or, you know how engineers are, brilliant but not great with people. I also started noticing I wasn't being invited to things. Board meetings happened without me. The board wants to focus on financial projections, Marcus explained. Not really your area of expertise. Not my area of expertise. The company I'd built from nothing. My entire team started acting different around me. Kevin stopped grabbing our usual Tuesday coffee. Lisa avoided the break room when I was there. People would stop talking when I walked in. Something had fundamentally shifted, and I was the only one who seemed to notice. Or maybe I was the only one who cared. The day I found out the truth was a Thursday. I remember because Thursdays were my favorite, the day I'd schedule deep focus time with no meetings, just me and my code. Marcus knew not to interrupt me on Thursdays. I'd left the office around 2 in the afternoon to grab lunch from that Thai place Marcus loved. The one with the green curry he always ordered extra spicy. I thought I'd surprise him since he'd been stressed about the upcoming board meeting. I used my key card to get back into the building, took the elevator up to 42, and headed straight for his office with the takeout bag. His door was slightly open, which was weird because he always kept it closed during calls. I was about to knock when I heard voices. Marcus and Vanessa. The timing has to be perfect, Vanessa was saying. If we move too early, she'll have time to build a defense. Too late, and the board might question why we waited. I froze with my hand halfway to the door. I know. Marcus sounded tired. This isn't easy, okay? We've been married for 12 years. Built this whole thing from nothing. Which is why the narrative needs to be about her instability, not your decision. You're the concerned husband who tried everything to help his brilliant but increasingly erratic wife. The board will sympathize. My heart stopped. The records you've been building will help, Marcus said. Every time she pushes back in meetings, every time she questions a decision, every time she works from home, it all supports the pattern. I've been very thorough, Vanessa said. By the time we present to the board, they'll see someone who's no longer capable of handling the CTO role. Maybe not capable of being at the company at all. I should have burst in right then. Instead, I stood there paralyzed, listening to them dismantle my entire life. What about the divorce? Vanessa asked. I'll file the same week we terminate her. Clean break, professional and personal. My lawyer says that because the company is structured with me as CEO, and her role is technically as an employee. Wait, what? The words came out before I could stop them. The conversation inside stopped abruptly. Then Marcus's face appeared in the doorway, genuinely surprised. Tasha. I thought you were working from home this afternoon. I was getting you lunch. I held up the takeout bag. Thai food. Your favorite. His eyes flicked to the bag, then back to my face. Calculating. That's sweet. Vanessa and I were just finishing up a strategy session about the Q4 projections. Sounded like you were strategizing something else entirely. Vanessa appeared behind him, perfectly composed. We were discussing personnel changes. Confidential board-level matters that involve firing me and making it look like I'm crazy. Marcus arranged his face into concerned sympathy. That's when I knew for sure. This wasn't a misunderstanding. This was planned. Tasha, I think you misheard. I heard perfectly. You're building a case to terminate me. Recording my instability. Filing for divorce. I looked at Vanessa. How long have you two been sleeping together? That's an inappropriate accusation, Vanessa said coolly. Your paranoia is what we've been concerned about. Concerned about, I repeated. Right. How considerate. Marcus reached for my arm. Let's talk about this privately. I jerked away. Don't touch me. You're being irrational right now. You're proving he stopped himself, but too late. What? What you've been telling everyone? That I'm unstable? Difficult? Unable to handle the pressure? My hands were shaking. I set the takeout bag on the floor carefully. I built this company, Marcus. The core technology, the security protocols, the entire platform, that's mine. You created it as an employee of Titan Shield Solutions, Vanessa interjected. Which means it's company property. I created it before Titan Shield existed. In my apartment. On my own equipment. According to your employment contract, any work created during your tenure belongs to the company. Including previous prototypes that became integrated into the final product. You've been planning this for months. Nobody's planning anything, Marcus said, annoyance creeping into his voice. You're being dramatic, which honestly, Tasha, is becoming a real problem. A problem you need to document for the board, right? If you just calm down. You're trying to steal my company and gaslight me into thinking I'm crazy for noticing, and you want me to calm down? Marcus's eyes went cold. Your company? I'm the CEO. I brought in the investors. I built the relationships. You wrote some code. Important code, sure, but code is replaceable. I'm the one who made this company worth $15 million. There it was. He actually believed I was just some code monkey who'd happened to be married to him while he built an empire. Get out of my office, he said quietly. I looked around at the space we designed, the windows where we'd celebrated our first major contract, the desk where I'd kissed him after closing our series of funding. When did it stop being ours and become yours? When you stopped being a partner and started being a liability. The words hit like a physical blow. I actually stepped back. Vanessa's hand moved to Marcus's shoulder. Possessive. Familiar. Maybe you should take the rest of the day off, she suggested. Clear your head. I looked at her hand on his shoulder. At the way he didn't move away. At the slight smirk on her face. You know what? You're right. I should go. I turned toward the door, then stopped. Oh, and Marcus? That employment contract Vanessa mentioned? The one that says my work belongs to the company? I never signed it. You kept meaning to have me sign the updated version, but you never did. Remember? His face went pale. Tasha. See you tomorrow. Or not. I walked out before either of them could respond, leaving the Thai food on the floor like the abandoned offering it was. I made it to my car before I threw up in the parking garage. Just leaned against my Honda and puked my guts out while some guy in a Tesla pretended not to notice. When I could finally breathe again, I sat in my car and pulled out my phone. My hands were still shaking as I opened my voice recorder app and played back what I'd captured. See, here's the thing about being a tech person. You learn to be prepared. You learn to keep backups. And you learn that the best security systems are the ones nobody knows exist. I'd started wearing a recording device 3 months ago. Just a tiny thing I'd built myself, tucked into my jacket lining, activated by my phone. Every conversation, every meeting, every interaction, all backed up to an encrypted cloud server Marcus didn't know existed. Including the conversation I just overheard through the door before I'd announced myself. I had everything. Their whole conspiracy, laid out in their own words. And they had no idea. After that Thursday, I started paying attention to everything. And when you're actually looking, the signs of betrayal are everywhere. The financial records were the first thing I dug into. I had full access to the company accounts, at least, I thought I did. But when I started examining the spreadsheets, weird charges kept popping up. Strategic Consulting Group, $42,000. I'd never heard of them. I Googled the company. Their website looked professional enough, but something felt off. No client testimonials, no case studies, just generic corporate speak. I dug deeper and found the business registration. The address listed was a residential apartment in Pacific Heights. Vanessa's apartment, specifically. Then there was Apex Advisory Services. $38,000 over 3 months. Another address that traced back to someone connected to Vanessa. Her cousin, actually, who apparently ran a consulting firm out of his garage. They'd been siphoning money from the company for months. I started taking screenshots, storing them in an encrypted folder they'd never find. But the money was just the beginning. The real destruction was how they'd systematically isolated me from everyone. Remember Kevin Park? The first developer I'd hired? We used to grab coffee every Tuesday morning. Suddenly, he stopped showing up. Marcus suggested I should be looping in Vanessa on technical decisions now, Kevin said, not meeting my eyes. For operational efficiency. Vanessa doesn't understand our technical architecture. Look, Natasha, I don't want to get in the middle of whatever's going on. I just want to do my job. Whatever's going on. Like I was the problem. Lisa stopped eating lunch with me. James started CCing Vanessa on every email. My entire team, people I'd personally hired and mentored, were slowly being turned against me. The board meeting in September was the worst. I just completed a major platform upgrade that increased our threat detection by 30%. I'd prepared this whole presentation showing the improvements, the client feedback, the competitive advantage. Marcus presented it instead. Our technical team has achieved significant improvements, he said, clicking through my slides with Vanessa beside him. This upgrade represents a collaborative effort across all departments. I'd like to hear from Natasha directly about the technical implementation. Richard Thompson, our lead investor, interrupted. This seems like primarily her work. Finally. Someone who got it. I started explaining the architecture changes, the algorithms I'd optimized, the testing protocols I'd developed. I was 3 minutes in when Marcus cut me off. Thanks for that deep dive, Natasha. I think what Richard is really asking about is the business impact. He turned to the board with an apologetic smile. Natasha gets very focused on technical minutiae, which is great for development but not always relevant for board discussions. This isn't minutiae. This is the core of what makes our product better than every competitor. Of course it is. Vanessa's voice was soothing, patronizing. We all appreciate the technical excellence. Marcus is just suggesting we focus on strategic implications for the board's time. I looked around the table. Every board member was nodding along like this made perfect sense. The strategic implication, I said slowly, is that I built something nobody else has. Again. Like I've been doing for 10 years. But apparently that's too technical to understand. The room went uncomfortably quiet. Marcus looked patient and concerned, like I was having a tantrum. I think we should take a break. Natasha, can we talk outside? In the hallway, he rounded on me. What the hell was that? Me trying to explain my own work? You were being aggressive and defensive. You made everyone uncomfortable. I made everyone uncomfortable by wanting to discuss actual technology at a tech company board meeting? This is the kind of behavior we've been worried about. We. Not him and me. Him and Vanessa. After that meeting, I found out I wasn't invited to the next one. The board wants to focus on financial projections, Marcus explained. Not really your area. Not my area. The company I'd built from nothing. I started working from home more. Partly because I couldn't stand being in that office. Partly because I needed access to my own equipment to document everything. Every time I worked from home, Vanessa would send an email. Just checking in, noticed you weren't in the office today. Hope everything's okay. Sweet. Concerned. Creating a paper trail of my excessive absences. Marcus started doing weekly team lunches at expensive restaurants, everyone invited except me. When I found out and confronted him, he acted shocked. Oh my God, I thought Vanessa was handling the invites. This is just an oversight. But it happened 3 weeks in a row. That night, I went through 7 years of email. All of it. Looking for patterns, for proof. I found emails from Marcus to board members describing my emotional volatility. Emails from Vanessa to HR noting times I'd been difficult to work with. Emails between Marcus and our lawyer discussing founder disputes and restructuring ownership. They'd been planning this for at least 6 months. Every questioning of a decision had been framed as aggressive pushback. Every work-from-home day had been noted as unreliable attendance. Every technical disagreement had become inability to collaborate. They'd built a case against me using my professionalism as evidence of problems. The worst email was from Marcus to Vanessa from 2 months ago. The timing needs to be perfect. Board meeting in January. Termination and divorce papers same day. By February, we'll have full control and she'll be too buried in legal proceedings to cause problems. Your contract as CTO will be ready to sign. Your contract as CTO. They weren't just pushing me out. They were replacing me with someone who'd never written a line of code. I sat in my home office at 3 a.m, staring at that email, and something inside me went completely cold. Not angry. Not hurt. Just cold and clear and certain about what I needed to do. They wanted to play games with paperwork and manufactured narratives. Fine. I'd been building systems that could bring down Fortune 500 companies. Taking down one tech CEO and his mistress would be easy. The thing about being a cybersecurity expert is that you know how vulnerable systems really are. Every platform has weaknesses. Most people never see them because they're looking at the surface. But when you built the whole thing from the ground up, you know where every crack is. I designed Titan Shield's entire security architecture. Which meant I knew where all the vulnerabilities were. Not bugs or accidents, intentional design choices that looked completely normal but could be exploited if you knew what you were looking for. Think of it like building a house. To everyone else, it's solid and secure. But the architect knows there's a specific brick in the foundation that, if removed, compromises the structure. Nobody would find that brick by accident. But if you built the house, you know where it is. I spent the next 3 months creating my insurance policy. First, I needed legal protection. I found a lawyer in San Jose named Patricia Moss who specialized in intellectual property disputes. Tell me everything, she said in our first meeting. I laid it all out. The company history, the ownership structure, Marcus's systematic campaign to push me out, the financial irregularities, the affair. I showed her the recordings, the emails, the evidence I'd been gathering. Patricia listened without interrupting, taking notes. When I finished, she sat back. Do you still love him? The question caught me off guard. Does it matter? It matters for what you want out of this. Some clients want reconciliation. Some want revenge. Some just want fair compensation. I thought about Marcus proposing in that coffee shop. Marcus staying up all night with me debugging code. Then I thought about him planning my termination while lying next to me in bed. I want him to understand what he's losing, I said. I want everyone to know I built Titan Shield. And I want to make sure he can never do this to anyone else. Patricia nodded. Then we need to be strategic. And we need thorough records of everything. I was already 6 steps ahead of her. I'd started capturing everything obsessively. I bought a tiny recording device online, the kind that looks like a pen but records crystal clear audio. I wore it every day, capturing every conversation, every meeting, every interaction with Marcus and Vanessa. I set up a separate cloud storage account under my maiden name that Marcus had no access to. Every night, I'd upload the day's recordings along with screenshots, emails, and financial records. If they tried to lock me out of company systems, I'd already have copies. But the recordings and documents were just defense. I needed offense too. The code was the key. The platform I'd built that was worth $15 million. Without me, that platform was functional. With my hidden vulnerabilities exposed, it would be worthless. I didn't create the vulnerabilities then. They'd been there all along, built into the architecture from the beginning. Not malicious, more like backdoors. Ways to access the system that bypass normal security protocols. Every good developer does this. You need ways to troubleshoot, to fix problems quickly, to access locked systems when clients forget passwords. It's standard practice. The difference is, most developers document these backdoors. I'd never mentioned mine to anyone. Now I just needed to decide how to use them. I also started seeing a therapist. Not because I thought I was losing it, though some days I wondered, but because I needed proof that I was mentally stable. If Marcus and Vanessa were building a case around my emotional instability, I needed evidence to the contrary. Dr. Sarah Whitmore worked out of a small office in Berkeley. She was in her 50s, with kind eyes and a no-nonsense attitude. Your husband is gaslighting you, she said bluntly during our second session. And you're being surprisingly rational about it. I'm not sure rational is the right word. I'm planning to sabotage his company. His company? Or your company that he's trying to steal? Good point. The hardest part was pretending everything was normal at home. Marcus still came home most nights. We still slept in the same bed. Still had dinner together occasionally. Still went through the motions of being married. How was your day? He'd ask, like he wasn't actively plotting my professional execution. Fine. Worked on the authentication protocols. You? Bored stuff. Investor calls. The usual. He'd kiss my forehead and I'd smell Vanessa's perfume on his collar. Some nights I'd lie awake next to him, listening to him breathe, wondering how he could sleep so peacefully while destroying us. Other nights, I'd get up at 2 or 3 in the morning and work on my contingency plans while he snored in the next room. I mapped out every system vulnerability. Every access point. Every weakness that could be exploited. Not to destroy the platform, I wasn't trying to hurt our clients, but to make it clear that without me, Titan Shield was just an expensive shell. I also started pulling together proof of my technical authorship. Original code repositories from before the company existed. Emails from our first year where Marcus admitted he didn't understand the technical architecture. Patent applications I'd filed in my own name. Conference presentation slides where I'd explained innovations that later became core Titan Shield features. Patricia helped me file provisional patents on 3 new security protocols I'd developed in the past year. If they try to claim these as company property, we can prove you filed first, she explained. In December, I opened a separate bank account Marcus didn't know about. I'd been doing some consulting work on the side, totally legal, nothing that competed with Titan Shield, and I funneled that money into my secret account. Not a lot, maybe $15,000, but enough to survive on if Marcus froze our joint accounts. Which he would. Christmas was surreal. We had dinner at Marcus's parents' house in Marin County. His mom made pot roast. His dad asked about the company. Everyone acted like we were still the perfect power couple. When are you two going to give us grandchildren? His mom asked over dessert. Marcus laughed. Soon, Mom. We've been focused on the company, but maybe next year. Next year. When he'd already planned to divorce me. I smiled and said nothing, cutting my pie into smaller and smaller pieces until it was just crumbs. On New Year's Eve, Marcus suggested we stay in. Like old times, he said. Just you and me. We ordered Chinese food and opened champagne. At midnight, he kissed me and said, to another year of building our future. I kissed him back and said, to getting what we deserve. He smiled, thinking I meant success and happiness. I meant something entirely different. By the first week of January, I had everything in place. The recordings were backed up in 3 different locations. Patricia had reviewed all my evidence and confirmed we had a strong case. My separate bank account had grown to $22,000. I'd changed passwords on my personal email and cloud storage to things Marcus would never guess. And I'd written the code. Not a virus, nothing destructive. Just a simple script that would activate at a specific time and gradually expose the vulnerabilities in Titan Shield's architecture. One by one, like dominoes falling, the weaknesses would become visible to anyone looking. And in the cybersecurity world, once people know you're vulnerable, they come circling like sharks. The script was set to activate 10 minutes after 9 a.m. on a date I didn't know yet. I'd trigger it remotely when the time was right. All I had to do was wait for Marcus to make his move. I didn't have to wait long. The call came on a Monday morning. January 15th. I was making coffee in our kitchen when Marcus's assistant texted me. Marcus needs to see you in his office at 9 a.m. He said it's urgent. I stared at the message, my heart pounding. This was it. The moment I'd been preparing for since September. I texted back, I'll be there. Then I opened my phone's secure app and activated the script. Set to trigger at 9:10 a.m. 10 minutes after the meeting would start. Whatever Marcus had planned, my response was already in motion. I dressed carefully that morning. Not my usual jeans and hoodie. I wore the charcoal gray pantsuit I'd bought for our Series B announcement, the one that made me feel powerful and professional. I put on the titanium necklace Marcus had given me for our 3rd anniversary. Not because I wanted to wear it, but because I wanted him to see me take it off. Marcus was already at work when I left. He'd gone in early, he said. Big day ahead. He'd kissed my cheek like nothing was wrong. I drove to the Millennium Tower listening to absolute silence. No music, no podcasts, nothing. Just my breathing and the sound of traffic and the knowledge that my entire life was about to implode. The office felt different when I walked in at 8:55. Too quiet. People looked at me and then quickly looked away. Kevin was at his desk but didn't meet my eyes when I passed. Lisa was in the break room and suddenly became very interested in her coffee. They knew. Everyone knew what was about to happen. I took the elevator to the executive floor. Carol, Marcus's assistant, looked genuinely upset when she saw me. Natasha, she started, then stopped. He's waiting for you. They both are. They both are. Of course Vanessa would be there. She'd want to watch. I knocked once on Marcus's door and walked in without waiting for an answer. Marcus sat behind his desk in his navy suit, looking every inch the powerful CEO. Vanessa stood beside him in a white dress this time, interesting choice, like she was trying to look innocent. And there was a third person I hadn't expected, Gerald Foster from HR, holding a folder and looking like he'd rather be literally anywhere else. Natasha, sit down. Marcus gestured to the chair across from his desk. I'm fine standing. He sighed. This is going to be difficult enough without you being combative. Combative. Good word. Is that what you're calling it in your records? Vanessa and Marcus exchanged a look. Gerald shifted uncomfortably. We need to discuss your position at Titan Shield, Marcus began, using his CEO voice. Over the past several months, there have been serious concerns about your performance and conduct. Concerns from whom? From multiple team members, from leadership, and from the board of directors. The board that met without me last month? The board met to discuss sensitive personnel matters. It wouldn't have been appropriate for you to attend a meeting about your own performance. I almost laughed. My performance. The performance that built this entire company. Nobody's denying your technical contributions, Vanessa interjected smoothly. But Titan Shield has grown beyond its startup phase. We need leadership that can collaborate, that can manage teams effectively. That can what? Not question you when you funnel $42,000 to a fake consulting company at your address? The room went dead silent. Marcus's face turned red. That's a serious accusation. It's a fact. Strategic Consulting Group, registered to your apartment, Vanessa. Apex Advisory Services, run by your cousin out of his garage. Should I continue? Because I have about 6 more. Gerald was now staring at his folder. Vanessa's expression had gone ice cold. You've been going through confidential financial records, Marcus said. That's the kind of boundary-crossing behavior we're talking about. I'm a 48% owner of this company. Those aren't confidential. They're my records. You're an employee who was granted equity. The company structure shows Marcus as founder and CEO, with you as CTO and early team member. I'd been expecting this. Really? Because the original incorporation documents from 10 years ago show both our names as co-founders. The ones you doctored were updated illegally last year. I have the originals. Marcus stood up abruptly. This is ridiculous. Gerald, let's just do this. Gerald cleared his throat nervously. Natasha Reeves, effective immediately, your employment with Titan Shield Solutions is terminated. You'll receive 2-week severance pay and health insurance continuation for 30 days. You're required to return all company property except your personal laptop, which you may keep. How generous, I said. letting me keep the laptop that contains all the original code I wrote before this company even existed. The severance package is quite fair given the circumstances, Vanessa said. And what circumstances are those? That I discovered your embezzlement scheme? That I noticed you two sneaking around? That I refused to disappear quietly while you stole my company? Marcus slammed his hand on the desk. Your company? I built Titan Shield. I brought in every investor, closed every major deal, created every business relationship. You wrote code. That's it. You're talented, but engineers are replaceable. There it was. The thing he'd been thinking for years, finally said out loud. Replaceable, I repeated softly. Is that what you told yourself while you were sleeping with her? That I was just some replaceable part you could swap out? This isn't about our marriage. Like hell it isn't. I pulled an envelope from my bag and threw it on his desk. Since we're having this conversation, let's have all of it. These are divorce papers. I'm filing. On grounds of adultery and financial fraud. My lawyer has everything. Marcus picked up the envelope, his hands shaking. You can't prove adultery. I have 6 months of recordings. Including some very interesting conversations about how you two planned this whole thing. The termination, the divorce, making me look unstable. All of it. Vanessa's face finally showed a crack. Recording private conversations without consent is illegal in California. It's legal if one party consents. And I consent to recording my own conversations. I smiled. You should know that, Stanford MBA. Marcus was reading the divorce papers, his face getting redder. You want half of everything? No, Marcus. I want what's mine. The house, which my salary paid for while you were spending company money on expensive suits. My 48% of Titan Shield's equity, properly valued. And complete rights to all technology one developed. That technology belongs to Titan Shield. Does it? Because I never signed an updated employment agreement. Remember? You kept saying you'd have Gerald draw one up, but you never did. Which means my original contractor agreement stands. And that agreement specifies that I retain rights to my proprietary technology. Gerald was now looking at Marcus with something like panic. You said she signed the updated agreements in the Series A closing. I thought she did, Marcus said weakly. You thought wrong. I checked my phone. 9:08 a.m. 2 minutes. Is there anything else? Any other ways you'd like to humiliate me before I leave? Security is waiting to escort you out, Vanessa said, recovering her composure. Standard procedure. Of course it is. I walked to the door, then turned back. You know what the funny thing is? If you'd just been honest with me, if you'd said you wanted out of the marriage, wanted a different business partner, whatever, I probably would have worked something out. We could have split things fairly. Then why didn't you? Marcus asked. Because you didn't just want out. You wanted to erase me. You wanted everyone to think you built this company alone, that I was just some unstable wife who couldn't handle the pressure. You wanted to steal what I created and make me disappear. I smiled. So that's what I'm going to let you think happened. What's that supposed to mean? I looked at my phone. 9:10 a.m. You'll figure it out. I walked out of Marcus's office with my head high. 2 security guards I'd known for 3 years looked miserable as they flanked me. It's okay, Tony. Just doing your job. We rode the elevator down to my floor. My team was scattered around their desks, pretending to work. I walked to my office and packed my things slowly. The photo of our wedding. The award from our first major tech conference. The stress ball shaped like a brain that Kevin had given me as a joke. I left the Titan Shield achievement plaques on the wall. Let them keep their fake participation trophies. Kevin appeared in my doorway. Natasha, I'm so sorry. I didn't know they were going to. It's fine, Kevin. Really? I zipped my bag. Take care of the platform. You're a good developer. The platform won't be the same without you. No, I agreed. It won't. I sat in my car in the parking garage for 5 minutes after they escorted me out. Not because I was upset, I was way past upset. I sat there because I wanted to be close enough to see it happen. My phone showed me real-time updates from the monitoring scripts I'd embedded in Titan Shield systems. Scripts that Marcus didn't know existed. Scripts that were about to make his perfect Monday morning very, very complicated. 9:15 a.m. The first notification popped up. Authentication delays detected. Response time increased by 200%. I smiled. That was just the beginning. See, what I'd done wasn't technically an attack. I hadn't destroyed anything or stolen data. I'd simply removed the optimization layers I'd built over the years. All those little tweaks and improvements that made Titan Shield fast and efficient? Gone. The platform was now running on its base code, functional, but slow. Really slow. Another notification, firewall processing lag detected. Client connections timing out. I started my car and drove slowly up the garage ramp. By the time I reached street level, alerts were flooding in. I pulled into a coffee shop parking lot across the street from the Millennium Tower. Ordered a black coffee and sat at a window seat with a perfect view of our building. 9:22 a.m. I could see movement through the glass walls of the lobby. People were moving faster than usual. Someone was on their phone, gesturing urgently. A text from Kevin, something's wrong with the platform. Everything's running at like 25% speed. Marcus is freaking out. I didn't respond. Just sipped my coffee and watched. Another notification, external probe detected. Source, Moscow. There it was. See, cybersecurity firms are constantly being probed by hackers around the world. But most of the time, those probes get blocked immediately by sophisticated defenses. Except I'd removed those sophisticated defenses. Suddenly, Titan Shield looked vulnerable. And word spreads fast when a major security company starts showing cracks. 9:28 a.m. A news van pulled up outside the building. Someone must have tipped them off, maybe a client whose systems were going haywire. Another notification, Beijing probe detected. London probe detected. Sao Paulo probe detected. The international hacker community had noticed. Through the window, I could see more chaos. The lobby was filling up with people. Someone was setting up what looked like a command center with laptops and whiteboards. A guy in an expensive suit burst out of the building's main entrance, phone pressed to his ear. Even from across the street, I could see the panic on his face. The coffee shop door opened and a woman walked in, staring at her phone with worry. Completely offline, she was saying. No, I don't know what happened. 1 minute fine, the next minute it was like someone flipped a switch. Someone did flip a switch, I thought. And that someone knew where every switch was located. 9:42 a.m. Through the window, I saw Marcus himself appear in the lobby. Even from this distance, I could see he was disheveled. His tie was loose, his hair messy. He was talking to 3 different people at once, his face red with stress. Vanessa was beside him, trying to look calm, but I could read her body language. The tight shoulders. The way she kept touching her hair. She was panicking too. Good. Another news van arrived. Then another. Whatever was happening at Titan Shield was officially a story now. A notification I'd set up months ago buzzed. It was connected to Titan Shield stock ticker. The stock had opened that morning at $47 per share. It was now at 41 and dropping. I finished my coffee and ordered another. This was going to take a while. By 10 a.m., there were 4 news vans outside, a crowd of confused employees in the lobby, and the stock was down to $38. Marcus appeared outside again, this time surrounded by reporters. I couldn't hear what he was saying, but his body language said it all. The confident CEO swagger was gone. Now he just looked desperate. I pulled out my laptop and logged into the secure cloud server where I'd stored everything. The recordings, the financial records, the emails, the proof of my technical authorship. All organized and ready. Then I sent one email. Just one, to Patricia. They're going to need someone to fix this. Let them sweat for a few hours first. Her response came back immediately, evil. I love it. I wasn't evil. I was just making sure Marcus understood something he'd forgotten. You don't burn down the house and then ask the architect for help rebuilding. You definitely don't do it when the architect still has the only copy of the blueprints. By noon, Titan Shield stock had dropped to $32. The coffee shop had become my command center, and I'd already ordered my third coffee. The barista was starting to give me concerned looks. My phone, which I'd turned back on, was exploding. 43 missed calls. 78 text messages. Most of them were from Marcus. Natasha, please call me. We need to talk. This is urgent. Call me now. I deleted them without reading past the first line. But I did check the news alerts. Titan Shield Solutions suffers massive system failure. Cybersecurity firm's platform crashes amid mysterious technical issues. Clients flee as Titan Shield unable to protect even its own systems. That last headline made me laugh out loud. Richard Thompson, our lead investor, called. I let it ring 4 times before answering. Natasha, thank God. He sounded like he'd been running a marathon. What the hell is happening? I wouldn't know, Richard. I was terminated this morning. Silence. Then, you were what? Fired. Let go. Escorted out by security. Marcus felt my services were no longer needed. The timing. The system failure started right after. Right after I was removed. Funny how that works. Natasha, please. Whatever's happening between you and Marcus, we have 17 clients threatening to pull their contracts. The stock is in free fall. That sounds like a problem for the CEO to solve. Marcus is the visionary, right? I'm sure he'll figure something out. Don't do this. Am I? Because according to the termination letter I received this morning, I'm unstable, difficult, and replaceable. So maybe I'm being petty. Richard's voice dropped. How much do you want? Excuse me? To fix this. To come back. Name your price. I watched through the window as another news crew set up outside. It's not about money, Richard. It's about respect. Something Marcus forgot while planning my exit and sleeping with Vanessa. Another silence. He was having an affair? You didn't know? Interesting. I wonder what else he didn't tell the board. Jesus Christ. Richard sounded sick. Natasha, I need to call an emergency board meeting. Make things worse? Richard, I'm sitting in a coffee shop drinking lattes. I'm not doing anything. That's what I'm afraid of. You not doing anything. He hung up. 1:15 p.m. Marcus finally appeared outside the building by himself. No Vanessa, no entourage. He stood on the sidewalk looking at his phone, and even from across the street, I could see his hands shaking. He called me. I watched his name flash on my screen and send it to voicemail. He tried again. Voicemail. Third time, I answered. What? Natasha. His voice was barely above a whisper. Please. I'm begging you. Oh, now you're begging. This morning you were firing me. I made a mistake. A huge mistake. You made a lot of mistakes, Marcus. You'll need to be more specific. The company is falling apart. Every system is failing. Clients are pulling out. The board is threatening to force me out. He took a shaky breath. I need you to fix this. You need me. The replaceable engineer. The unstable wife. The person you fired 6 hours ago. Yes. I need you. I was wrong. About all of it. About firing me? Or about spending the last 6 months plotting with your mistress to steal my company? I heard him choke back something that might have been a sob. Both. I was an idiot. Finally, something we agree on. Natasha, please. Whatever you want. Full reinstatement, raise, public apology, I don't care. Just fix the systems. Fix them so you can keep your company, your reputation, your stock options. I already lost mine this morning. What do I gain by helping you? Because, he stopped. Started again. Because you built this. Titan Shield is yours as much as mine. More than mine. And I know you don't want to see it destroyed. He wasn't wrong. As much as I hated Marcus, I'd poured 10 years into Titan Shield. The technology was good. It helped people. But Marcus didn't need to know I was conflicted. I'll think about it, I said. Think about it? Natasha, we don't have time. You don't have time. I have all the time in the world. I'm unemployed, remember? I hung up. 2 minutes later, Vanessa called. What do you want? To apologize. Her voice was different now. Scared. I made a terrible mistake getting involved with Marcus. You made multiple mistakes. Which one specifically? All of it. I'm sorry. You're sorry you got caught. Please, Natasha. There are 70 employees at Titan Shield who did nothing wrong. People with families, mortgages, kids. If the company goes under, they lose their jobs. Like I lost mine this morning? You can get revenge later. Right now, please think about them. She had a point. Kevin didn't deserve to lose his job. Neither did Lisa or James. I'll consider it, I said, and hung up. By 3 p.m., the stock was at $28. The news was calling it one of the fastest corporate collapses in Silicon Valley history. Patricia called. You've made your point. Time to think about your endgame. My endgame is watching Marcus suffer. And you've accomplished that. But if you let the company completely collapse, your 48% becomes worthless. The house you want? Tied up in assets that won't exist. The settlement you deserve? Can't get it. Damn it. She was right. So what do you suggest? Let them sweat until end of business today. Then we send them our terms. You come back, but on your conditions. Complete control of technical operations. Public acknowledgement of your role. And a new ownership structure. They'll never agree. They will, Patricia said confidently. Because right now, you're the only thing standing between Marcus and total ruin. I looked across the street at the Millennium Tower. At the chaos. At the empire I'd built that was crumbling without me. Send the terms, I said. Let's see if Marcus is desperate enough to agree. I didn't go back that day. Or the next. I let Marcus and Vanessa sit in their chaos for 72 hours while Patricia negotiated terms that would have been unthinkable a week ago. Meanwhile, my phone wouldn't stop ringing. But these weren't desperate calls from Marcus anymore. These were offers. The first one came Tuesday morning. A company called SecureNet based in Austin. Ms. Reeves, I'm David Park, CEO of SecureNet. I'll be direct, we've been following the Titan Shield situation. Whatever happened, your technical reputation speaks for itself. We'd like to offer you a consulting contract. $5,000 a day, minimum 30 days. I nearly dropped my coffee. $5,000 a day? Your work on predictive threat detection is legendary. The Pacific Financial Save alone would have been worth 10 times what we're offering. I took the contract. Why not? I had nothing but time. By Wednesday, I had 3 more offers. Companies that had been Titan Shield competitors suddenly wanted the architect who'd built the platform they'd been trying to beat for years. Thursday morning, I was working from my favorite coffee shop when Kevin messaged me. I quit. Told Marcus I'm not staying without you. Half the dev team is following me. I called him immediately. Kevin, you didn't have to do that. Yeah, I did. He sounded tired but certain. You know what Marcus said? He said I was being emotional and unprofessional. Like loyalty is somehow unprofessional. What are you going to do? I don't know yet. Maybe freelance. He paused. Lisa and James quit too. And Sarah from operations. Marcus is down to like 40 people now. The company was eating itself alive. Friday afternoon, Patricia called. They've agreed to your terms. All of them. I sat up straighter. Everything? Everything. 60% ownership, Marcus keeps 40. You have complete control of all technical decisions with no oversight. Public statement acknowledging you as the primary architect. And Marcus has to step down as CEO. He agreed to step down. The board forced it. Turns out embezzlement and tanking the stock price isn't great for job security. They're bringing in an outside CEO to run business operations. You'll run technical. You're getting the company without the deadweight. I should have felt triumphant. Instead, I felt exhausted. What about Vanessa? Terminated. Banned from any future involvement. There's also an ongoing investigation into the financial irregularities. She might face criminal charges. And Marcus? 40% ownership, no operational role, no voting rights. He's basically a passive investor in the company he tried to steal. Poetic justice. When do they want me to start? Monday. If you're willing. Was I willing? To go back to the place where I'd been humiliated? To work in the same building as Marcus? But also, to reclaim what I'd built. To prove to everyone that Titan Shield only existed because of my work. To turn my greatest defeat into my greatest victory. I'll be there Monday, I said. That weekend, I barely left my house. I needed to prepare mentally for walking back into that building. Saturday night, Marcus texted me. Just one message. Thank you. I stared at it for 5 minutes before responding. I'm not doing this for you. I'm doing this for me. Monday morning, I got dressed in my best suit, not the gray one I'd worn to my firing, but a new navy one I'd bought specifically for this moment. I put on the titanium necklace. Not because Marcus gave it to me, but because it reminded me who I was before he tried to make me forget. The office felt different when I walked in. Quieter. There were only about 30 people left. The ones who remained looked up when I entered, and I saw relief on their faces. Kevin was waiting by my office. Welcome back, boss. I'm not your boss anymore, Kevin. You quit, remember? He grinned. Yeah, about that. I'm unquitting. If you'll have me. What about Lisa and James? Waiting in the conference room. We figured if you were coming back, maybe we would too. I felt something crack in my chest. Maybe it was the wall I'd built. Maybe it was just relief that some people were who I thought they were. Conference room, I said. Let's talk. The meeting lasted 2 hours. We went over the platform failures, what needed fixing, who we needed to hire. Kevin had lists. Lisa had technical assessments. James had a recovery timeline. They'd been preparing for my return. One question, Lisa said. Where's Marcus? Marcus no longer has operational authority, I said simply. He's a minority shareholder. That's all. The looks on their faces were worth every terrible moment of the past year. We spent the rest of the week stabilizing the platform. I restored the optimization layers, fixed the vulnerabilities, rebuilt the security protocols. Within 5 days, the system was running better than ever. Clients started returning. Cautiously at first, then with more confidence. The stock began climbing back up. Not to 47 yet, but heading in the right direction. I saw Marcus once that first week. He was clearing out his office, the corner office with the view he'd insisted on. I stopped in the doorway and watched him pack awards and photos into boxes. Natasha. He looked up, and I was shocked by how much older he looked. I wanted to say, "Don't." I cut him off. "We're not going to have some moment where you apologize and I forgive you. That's not happening." "I know. He gestured helplessly at the boxes. "I threw away the best thing in my life. The best partner I could have had. For what? Ego? A fling? I don't even understand my own decisions anymore. That's the first honest thing you've said in 2 years." He laughed bitterly. "Yeah, well. Honesty seems to come easier when you've lost things. You didn't lose everything, Marcus. You still have 40% of a company that's going to be valuable again. You still have the house, for now. You still have your health and your freedom." I paused. "Vanessa's probably going to prison. You got off easy." "Easy," he repeated. "Right." I turned to leave, then stopped. For what it's worth, I did love you. The you from 10 years ago. The one who believed we were actually partners. That person was real, and I loved him. And now? Now I don't feel anything. And honestly, that's so much better than love. 6 months later, Titan Shield was valued at $22 million. More than it had ever been under Marcus's leadership. The tech press called it the most dramatic corporate turnaround in Silicon Valley history. They interviewed me for Forbes. For TechCrunch. For Bloomberg. Every article had the same angle, the brilliant architect who'd been pushed out, only to return and save the company from collapse. Marcus hated every single article. I know because he still had 40% ownership, which meant he still got the press alerts. But he couldn't say anything. Couldn't claim credit. Couldn't rewrite the narrative this time. The divorce was finalized in July. I got the house, my full 60% of Titan Shield, and a settlement that ensured I'd never have to worry about money again. Marcus got his 40% and whatever was left of his dignity. Spoiler, not much. Vanessa did end up facing charges. Not prison, her lawyer was too good for that, but she paid hefty fines and was banned from holding any corporate officer position in California. Last I heard, she'd moved to Phoenix and was working in her uncle's real estate office. The last time I saw Marcus was at a board meeting in August. We'd brought in a new CEO, a woman named Jennifer Brooks who'd run 2 successful cybersecurity firms before joining us. She was strategic, experienced, and actually respected by the people who worked for her, everything Marcus pretended to be. Marcus sat at the end of the table, silent through most of the meeting. When we discussed Q3 projections, Jennifer asked him if he had any input on the business development strategy. "I think Natasha and the team have it handled," he said quietly. "I trust their judgment." After the meeting, he caught up with me in the hallway. "Can we talk? Just for a minute?" I checked my watch. "You have 60 seconds. I've been thinking about selling my shares. 40% of 22 million is good money. I could pay off debts, start fresh somewhere else." He looked at me. "Would you want first right of refusal? To buy me out completely?" I thought about it. Owning Titan Shield entirely. No more board meetings with Marcus sitting there like a ghost. No more reminders of what we used to be. "How much?" I asked. "Market value. 8.8 million. I'm not trying to screw you over. Not anymore. I'll have my lawyer draw up the paperwork." Relief flooded his face. "Thank you. Really. It's better for both of us. Clean break. We had a clean break when you fired me, Marcus. This is just me finishing what you started." He nodded slowly. You know what the worst part is? Watching you succeed without me. Seeing the company thrive under your leadership. Realizing that I wasn't the visionary, you were. I was just the guy who happened to be standing next to you when you built something incredible. You could have kept standing next to me. That was always an option. I know. And I'll spend the rest of my life regretting that I didn't. We stood there in the hallway for a moment. 10 years of history between us. Marriage, partnership, betrayal, destruction, and now this, the final ending. I hope you find whatever you're looking for, I said finally. I really do. Just find it somewhere far away from me. I'm thinking Colorado. Maybe start a small consulting business. Nothing big. Just enough to feel useful again. Good luck with that. I walked away and didn't look back. 3 weeks later, the buyout went through. I owned 100% of Titan Shield Solutions. The company I'd built in a cramped apartment 10 years ago was entirely, completely, legally mine. That night, I took Kevin, Lisa, and James out for dinner at an expensive restaurant overlooking the bay. We ordered champagne and celebrated properly this time. To Natasha, Kevin raised his glass. Who taught us that the person who builds the foundation gets to decide how tall the building grows? To Titan Shield, Lisa added. The company that almost died and came back stronger. To never underestimating the quiet ones, James said with a grin. They're usually the ones with all the power. I raised my glass and looked out at the San Francisco skyline. At the city where I'd started with nothing but code and determination. At the life I'd rebuilt from the ashes of betrayal. To knowing your worth, I said. And never letting anyone convince you otherwise. We drank to that. And somewhere across the city, in an empty corner office he'd just finished packing up, Marcus probably realized what I'd known all along. You can't steal someone's empire when they're the only one who knows how to keep it standing. Up next, you've got 2 more standout stories right on your screen. If this one hit the mark, you won't want to pass these up. Just click and check them out. And don't forget to subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss any upload from us.